This is not the story of the greatest Viking warrior of his time. This is the story of his son, Thorson Karlsefni, better known as Thorfinn. This is Vinland Saga, a tale that's less about conquering enemies by spilling their blood with swords and pikes, and more about conquering yourself by the act of understanding and forgiving your internal conflicts. The first season of the show is a savage act of war and violence. The second one, however, takes a bold turn into self-reflection. This video is a personal take, as it is my intention to add things that I'm passionate about in this channel. See, friends, it's difficult to compete with pop culture channels that produce videos every week and every day, so I will instead give you my very best every so often, every opportunity that I can. Also, I should mention that Christianity is a thing in this anime, and it showcases itself when one of the characters, Liv, says that he will celebrate Christian Christmas in the first episode. I say this because this will play a part on the script, so if you're ready for a different kind of a story, a journey inward, stay with me. I'm Joseph, and this is Esupoida. While Vinland Saga is a fictional story, it draws from historical figures, including Thorfinn Karlsefni, an Icelander who traveled to North America around 1010. His travels are documented in the Nordic books, the Vinland Sagas. Thorfinn followed Leif Erikson, a Norse trader and adventurer who might have been the first European to reach North America, Vinland, a part of modern-day Canada. The historical Thorfinn may have sought new lands. The Vinland Saga version of Thorfinn embarks on a very different kind of journey, a personal one. His story begins not with adventure or exploration, but with revenge, and at the heart of its hatred, awakening. Far away into the ocean, far away from war, there's a paradise. A new world where fruit grows and grassy plains cover the land. A vast pasture where the sun forever shines and the trees forever share. A land called Vinland, free of slave traders, immune to the fires of violence. A meadow of peace, beauty, rivers and cows. Leif Erikson told such stories to Thorfinn and the other kids in a small island on Iceland, where meat, heat and food were scarce. Since Thorfinn was little, he craved other types of adventures though, the ones his father had with a sword in hand, and the glory that came with being a warrior. The thrill of warfare echoed in the heart of every Icelander kid, even if they were not yet strong enough to carry a wooden weapon. This behavior derives from the belief in Valhalla, the idea that true warriors ascend to heaven. But his father thought otherwise. He faked his own death during a chaotic battle to buy a lifetime of rest and family. His old friend, Leif, taught him a similar lesson. He claimed he himself, a traveler and adventurer, was a true warrior. Do warriors need weapons? Can warriors have peace? By that time, Thors was taking care of a slave that ran away. The father told the slave about Vinland, where he could be free, and when the slave owners came to take him away, the father did not use his sword. He bought the slave that ran away with goats, just to give him a final moment of freedom. Icelanders had also run away before to escape the claws of Harald Fairhair, king of Norway, also a historical figure. So where would Icelanders go if they needed to run away? Because the next visitors came with a tall order. Thor's idyllic life shatters when the Jomsvikings, elite Viking warriors, demand his return to war by joining Denmark in the conquest of England. He accepts, knowing that refusal would mean doom for their community. Drafted to battle, the townsmen celebrate around Thors, but the legendary warrior lowers his head. He has kept the secret of who he was to his family and the townsfolk, but he knows the past has come to haunt him. He deserted the Jomsvikings in the past, and Jomsvikings never forgive deserters. He would not run away this time. Thorfinn was eager to go as well. He grabbed his father's knife, ready to depart to battle, but his father wouldn't have it. Years after he left the army, he told Thorfinn a knife was a tool for killing. "You have no enemies," his father said to him. "No one has enemies. No one in this world deserves to be hurt." How could that be true if they are Vikings? How could Thors have no enemies if he had to go to war? Thor's words had fallen on deaf ears. Longing to be with his father, he sneaks aboard the ship, making a choice that would change his life forever. Have you ever made a decision that altered your path? As Thorfinn reveals his presence to his father, danger closes in. A group of mercenaries led by the cunning Askeladd wants Thor's head, a task given by the Viking commander that recruited the ex-soldier, Floki.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Ambush. In a desperate attempt to save his crew and son, Thor offers a one-on-one duel against Askeladd, but the honorable path proves deadly against dishonorable warriors. Thor lowers his sword when the mercenaries take Thorfinn hostage. Askeladd's treachery transforms into multiple arrows in Thor's body, leaving Thorfinn to grapple with a sudden, consuming hatred. His very presence on the ship may have sealed his father's fate. In his final breath, body full of arrows, Thor says he won the duel, so Askeladd should let his crew and his son live. Askeladd swears he will in the name of his ancestor Artorius, and perhaps out of the sheer respect he found for the true warrior he tricked. Leif Eriksen and the rest of the Icelanders go back, but Thorfinn stays. Askeladd is my enemy. Askeladd deserves to die. Thorfinn stays on the ship as the mercenaries haul it, his mind slowly turning him into a slave of vengeance. He screams to Aselkat and his crew that he will kill the mercenary leader. And so Act 1 of Vinland Saga concludes, weaving together the show's central themes, the clash between honor and survival, the painful cost of vengeance, and the search for true strength. Out of compassion, pity, or perhaps disrespect, Askeladd allows the kid to stay and follow them. With no one to help him and surrounded by what he sees as enemies, he must learn how to find water and food by himself before he can complete his goal. But young and inexperienced, Thorfinn cannot kill a defenseless man in his sleep. He must be honorable like his father. Mercenaries laugh as Thorfinn challenges their leader in a one-to-one combat to avenge Thor's and Lucius. The second in command, Bjorn, was the first to offer him respect. He's the one that held him hostage, and he offers the first lesson to Thorfinn's warrior journey. His father was strong, but naive. The son is weak. So he begins training with his father's knives. First victim was a wolf. Before the mercenaries leave on their boat, Thorfinn challenges Aselkat once again to suffer a second defeat. He's kicked on the floor, mocked and humiliated. His father's short sword punched aside. He can't fathom why his father lost. If achieving justice is something he deserves, why can't he achieve it? It could be that Aselkat saw something in Thor's son. It could be curiosity, or it could be mere sadism. Either way, he offered the kid respect and motivation through a promise. If Thorfinn is a true Viking, he said, he needed to prove himself in battle to earn a duel as a reward. Like so, Thorfinn joined the mercenary group. Thorfinn's new journey starts with more historical context. We are in 10,002 AD. England has started a full-scale attack on the Vikings and have migrated to their coast. As a retaliation, Denmark is sending troops with the goal of taking England's crown. In the battlefield, the weaklings die first, like you. This is what Askeladd said to Thorfinn in the first battle he fought. Following the lessons of his tormentor and unexpected mentor, he took a life at 6 years old. 10 years went by. 10 years of duels lost. And 10 years of increasingly dangerous feats to get the promised reward. Thorfinn became a relentless warrior as he fought across England's red-torn fields. Many enemies he has defeated in battle, civilians, soldiers and mercenaries alike. Many times he has proven how he might become even stronger than his father, despite his young age and his small body. But Aselkat, even though he was his true enemy, was the one he couldn't defeat. He knew what to say and how to behave to throw Thorfinn's head off, so he was always 2 steps ahead of the small blades. And every time the young warrior failed to his master's treachery, he had to endure Aselkat's taunts, calling him a fool for losing his temper, as if he wanted him to win. Thorfinn's resentment kept growing, and so did his battle prowess. The more he fought alongside the mercenaries, the more the crew learned to respect him, even understand him. A sense of compassion was setting in. Maybe not for Aselkat. He knew far too well that Thorfinn would do what he was told in order to earn new duels. Thor's son was fast, vicious and fearless, perhaps Askeladd's strongest asset, a tool for increasingly dangerous missions. After all, Thorfinn was honorable. He would never betray Askeladd, not even as treacherous as he was. The honorable path is often lonely, and for Thorfinn, it was unbearably so. He spent his nights alone in his father's ship, now the mercenary's property. Often his father's ghost appeared to dissuade him from his vengeful path, reminding him that a true warrior needs no sword, that no one is his enemy. Thor's words haunt him, but they fall on deaf ears. So one night, the father let go, leaving Thorfinn to the only teacher he seemed to accept: violence. But learning for himself would prove difficult, lost in the chaos of war. One night, a slave girl asked Thorfinn if he was a slave too, because he acted just like one. She wondered if crossing the ocean would take her to a world where she could be free. On the other side, Thorfinn remembers there's Vinland, a faraway dream from a faraway time, because he was, indeed, a slave to his vengeance. Can we truly grow when surrounded by conflict? Or does real change comes only after we've hit rock bottom? Before Thorfinn's journey continues, the show introduces more historical context. Denmark's war against England started around 986 AD in the anime, when Thor, also known as the Troll of Jom, was traveling with the Jomsvikings across England. We are now in 10,013 AD. The king of Denmark, Sweyn Forkbeard, is old, but has an unquenchable thirst of conquest. He's decided to lead an army to England to sit in Londinum's throne. Askeladd's crew is working for Denmark's king, and they join the Battle of London Bridge to capture the capital. A turncoat Viking, Thorkel, was holding the city for the English. But Thorfinn was Aselkad's coin, so in exchange for a new duel, he needs to take Thorkel down, and he's known as the strongest Viking alive. The young warrior managed to hurt the giant's hand, but he decided to retreat after a single attack that almost killed him. On his way out, he introduced himself as Thor's son, much to Thorkel's interest. The new duel needed to wait, and whether Thorfinn liked it or not, the political games took center stage when Canuto, Denmark's young and inexperienced prince, joined the play. His father sent him to England so he could prove himself in battle, despite the best wishes of Ragnar, his caretaker and overprotector. Canuto's mission was commanding his army to take Londinum. However, he was afraid, conflicted, insecure, and weak. Moreover, his Christian teachings wouldn't let him take part in the war. Before he made any move, Thorkel's army captured the prince, as the prince would be worth lots of money. Once Thorfinn found and joined Aselkad again, they talked from dusk to dawn, or better said, Thorfinn listened. Thorfinn wanted to be alone to think about his family, his father, and the promise of Vinland, and he realized that the one who took that away was sitting in the same peak. The young warrior grabbed his knife, and Aselkad stood by. But then Thorfinn decided to let go of the hilt and listen. Aselkad told him about God, heavenly justice, and Britannia's history. Thorfinn's only reply was that he is not his friend, and someday he would kill him. Aselkad replied that eventually even the great Roman Empire fell, and he is getting old. The sun came up and Thorfinn was still paying attention to his enemy. By that time, a messenger came with information about the Danish prince. When the mercenary leader heard the news about Canuto, he set a new goal for his crew. They would capture the prince back for coin and glory. Canuto, by the way, is based on the historical figure of Canuto the Great. As the journey continues, we get to see more deeply into each character's conflict. Thorfinn struggles with memories of his father and peaceful times in Iceland with his family. Thorkel and his army are obsessed with fighting so they can become true warriors and ascend to Valhalla. Moreover, they enjoy the spoils of battle, women and food. They would never convert to Christianity, which is the religion that's conquering England and that would prohibit these spoils. One of the soldiers says that the guy they worship looks very weak. Lastly, Canuto can't talk for himself, so he lets his caretaker do the talking, and the Christian father is struggling to understand Jesus Christ's message in a world overwhelmed with violence. As they travel, Ragnar followers try to save the prince, but before they fail, Askeladd finally catches Thorkel's convoy. He uses fire and smoke to create a distraction, while his coin, Thorfinn, infiltrates enemy lines and saves Canuto. By now, Thorkel admires his strength and recognizes it must be because he's the son of Thors, the Troll of Jom, who was even stronger than him. A true warrior, Thorkel calls him. Thorfinn listens no more and escapes with Canuto, the priest, and Ragnar. Askeladd is pleased, or is he relieved? He kneels to Canuto, and Ragnar accepts the mercenary as his bodyguard until they reach the main army, even if the mercenaries' plan scattered Ragnar's soldiers. As a reward, Askeladd wants to see Canuto's face beneath the helmet. Upon seeing the face of a prince, he begins changing.
ここ数日ちょっと変だぜ。何考えてる？王子の顔を見てからだ。 そうだろ。
How will Askeladd escape Torkel and keep Canuto safe? First, he orders Thorfinn to be Canuto's bodyguard. After all, he's strong, and he's about the same age as the prince. That would be about 17 years old. Thorfinn won't do it for free though, so once they get to Gainsborough, Askeladd will reward him with a duel. This is the city the Danish king chose as the capital of England and Denmark. Even so, the leader is losing interest in these duels. Then Askeladd shows there's more to him than what it seems. He commands his group to the Britannic Island, and his wit and cunning become central to survive in winter. He manages to negotiate, leverage influence, and even get reinforcements from local powers in Wales. In one key moment, another local tribe ambushed them. Askeladd tried to make Canuto persuade them, but Canuto hid behind Ragnar's body and excuses. To this, Thorfinn says, "Pathetic. Are you really the same age as me?" Askeladd still uses his words to pass through. He reveals he's a descendant of Artorius through his mother, Lydia. Artorius is an ancient king of legends that unified Britannia and brought forward an era of peace. We know him as the legend of King Arthur. King Arthur is known in Latin as Lucius Artorius Castus, and it refers to the folk, English and Welsh legend of an ancient Celt king that defeated the Saxon invasion and unified Britannia. Now his descendant intends to put Canuto on the throne and ensure Wales remains safe. However, Askeladd recognizes that Canuto needs to grow first. Luckily, Thorfinn pushes him in a way that makes Canuto talk to someone else that's not Ragnar. He expresses that he needs to be prudent, as anything he says as the prince can have major repercussions. Meanwhile, we learn that the Danish army has almost conquered the entire island. Some historical context is needed. The Roman Empire conquered the English island and called the area Britannia around the year 43 AD. After Rome lost control of Britannia around 409 AD, the west of England, known as Wales, never unified, and it consists of several smaller and poorer tribes. Askeladd's mother hails from these parts. Holding on to its legendary inheritance, Askeladd intends to put Canuto on the throne and ensure he keeps Wales safe. However, the young prince needs to mature, and Ragnar doesn't let him. Sadly, the mercenaries don't understand their leader. They want women, pork, gold, and beer, so they don't have much patience for Askeladd's grandeur. They don't understand the priest either. He's in the search of the love Jesus Christ described. One day he heard two mercenaries talk about Thors. Much to their astonishment, the priest was in awe. This was it. Someone with immeasurable power willing to put the other cheek in the face of danger to achieve the greater good. Someone capable of moving people away from evil, and not with violence but with words. A true warrior doesn't need a sword. Is this what forgiveness means? But there's no time for forgiveness. Thorkel, as well as the English army, are on the mercenaries' trail, and winter is getting colder. The mercenaries took hold of a small town to survive, and the priest's words could not stop it. Moments ago, a family inside one of those houses was hearing about a god that punishes evil in the afterlife. Like the Danish, they said. Moments after, they all died. The sun is pushing back the cold. As Canuto and Ragnar share a meal with Thorfinn, the young warrior has questions of his own. Is this what a family feels like? Canuto even shared a secret with Thorfinn, as if he was his friend. He told him that cooking is his secret hobby. But a long time ago, when he showed his father that he could cook, the king replied that he should not behave as a slave, and that royalty doesn't need to do menial things. But there's no time for family either. Askeladd is in a hurry. He tricks Ragnar and kills him to force Canuto to grow. Knowing that this might be the best for the young prince, his caretaker dies, certain that Canuto will find happiness. On his last breath, he issues a warning to Askeladd. Canuto's real enemy is sitting in the throne of Gainsborough. His father, the Danish and now English king, has always wanted him dead. His whole mission had that purpose. The king thinks Canuto is not strong enough to have the crown, so the throne should go to his brother Harald. Askeladd would be as ruthless as he needed to be to put Canuto in the throne. Such is the world they live in. After all, English are savages as well, he says, because Anglos and Saxons took everything away from the Celts 500 years ago. Perhaps Canuto, the shy and caring prince, could put a stop to this cycle of conquest, war, and slavery. However, neither politics nor history will fit mercenary bellies. One of the villagers from the raided town survived, and Thorkel got word from her about Askeladd's army. The enemy is nearby, and tensions are rising. Why not deliver Canuto to Thorkel to get some coin? Isn't that better than the death in battle they've been craving for years? Askeladd's group thinks so. We are going to march until we lose Torkel. Walk while you eat, and walk while you sleep. That is the plan the frightened mercenaries hear from their leader. After Torkel found them in the village, they ceased to take refuge during the snow. When Ragnar was alive, he said Canuto has never made a choice on his own. Now Canuto calls his name, but there won't be an answer. He can't take his body, he can't bury him, and he can't say goodbye. Sometimes the evil around us forces us to mature all of the sudden in order to survive. Because Torkel's shadow is covering their steps, mutiny is afoot. How can the Shy Prince survive? And what will happen with Thorfinn's revenge amidst a turmoil that pushes his feelings aside? Aselkat has a plan. He orders Thorfinn and Bjorn to escort Canuto and the priest on a sled. The leader will stay behind and face the consequences. He says, then, that he has a special talent to understand people by looking at their faces. He knows treason has already begun. Many years ago, a wounded mother told the story of Avalon to a young child. It's a land of everlasting spring, where the faeries live, a place where death and fear doesn't exist. King Artorius, she said, would return to the world once his wounds are healed to save people from their suffering. When Artorius returns, she said, her son should serve him, as Artorius is a true warrior. This is what Aselkat's mother told him. Her mother, Lydia, was from Wales, and she was enslaved by a Danish Viking named Olaf. Now, surrounded by angry Viking mercenaries, there's one confession Aselkat makes. He's always hated them. You worthless Danes, you're worse than pigs, says before he swings his sword. Meanwhile, Thorfinn and Bjorn escape on the sled to protect Canuto. The young warrior abandons Canuto and goes back to save him, better said, to prevent others from killing him. Breathing heavily, Askeladd confesses that he couldn't wait any longer for the true king of Avalon. Now his replacement, Canuto, is in peril, the sled is broken, and Bjorn is all that's left to save him. Torkel arrives looking for Thorfinn. Hearing how he's not there, he orders his army to kill everyone but their leader, now in the face of death. All of these mercenaries obsessed with fighting and killing to get a ticket to Valhalla panic. Afraid, they offer Torkel help in finding Canuto, who just got away. But death in battle is the Vikings' way, and as heads fall, bodies panic. All but one. Thorfinn reaches the chaos and threatens to kill Torkel if he touches Askeladd. A new duel starts. Thorfinn manages to hurt the giant several times with his speed until Torkel starts talking. The giant is impressed, but not that impressed, so he recognizes both of them are missing something. He asks, what makes a true warrior? A question Thors would have answered, but his son cannot. Elsewhere, the priest finds the answer he's looking for before anyone else. He points at a dead man and declares he embodies the perfect love, the ultimate sacrifice to feed the animals and the earth, a harmless being who would never hate or harm anyone. Love is God's creation itself. Humans, though, were expelled from God's paradise and are forever bound to violence and defeat. Torkel's words haunt Thorfinn, and in the blink of an eye, a kick sends him flying towards faraway trees. With a look of dread on his face, Askeladd says he's lost all hope now. As Thorfinn is facing his darkest moment, Canuto suppresses his first test. With courage and resolution, he calms down a badly injured and out of control Bjorn. He has found what he has to do, and he's ready to make decisions. He will go back to the chaos and face Torkel. Canuto even convinces Bjorn and one of the mercenaries to follow him, become his vassals. He will give meaning to their lives, deaths, and battles. That is the duty of a king, he says. Thorfinn wakes up after his injury. Askeladd is next to him, and he has tended his fractured arm. Torkel, in front of them, talks about Thors. He was the strongest of the Joms Vikings. In fact, so strong that their commander offered his daughter, Helga, to marry him. These are Thorfinn's parents. One day, though, Thors disappeared in battle. Months later, Torkel found him sneaking in a camp with Helga and tried to dissuade him with violence. Thors easily beat him, and Torkel now wonders what Thors did after he left and why he couldn't defeat him. He thinks that fighting his son can show him what he needs to become a true warrior. But as I said, Torkel is not that impressed. He sees Thorfinn is not Thors. He doesn't have the same look, nor the same attitude. He probably learned nothing from his father, he thinks, and so the duel continues. Askeladd is worried, though. Thorfinn is heavily injured and outmatched, but he has a plan, as he knows Thorkel's weakness. If Thorfinn wins, he thinks he will live. He pumps the blood of the young warrior by reminding him of the reward, a duel. Thorfinn agrees to teamwork with Askeladd, for now. So, Thorfinn is wounded and tired. He wouldn't win without Askeladd's help. So, without anyone noticing, the mercenary uses his sword to reflect sunlight to Thorkel's eyes to blind him. Thorfinn seizes the moment to kick the giant in his weak spot, the cheeks, and takes him down. He could have taken that as a victory, but instead, he takes Thorkel's eye off with his bare, raging hands. Thorkel's army is angry, and the leader now wants to fight Thorfinn to the death. Before, he had given him the opportunity of surrendering. Now, there's no hope of winning, at least not with violence. Unarmed, Canuto arrives and parleys with Thorkel. He commands everyone to stop, because death will be meaningless in this battle. Canuto pays Thorfinn's prior rescue by saving his life this time. The prince pulls on Thorkel's ego, so the giant recognizes Thorfinn won the duel and orders the army to let him go. While the giant was planning to exchange the prince for money to the Danish king, Canuto says his father doesn't love him, and he's always expected the prince to die in battle. But instead of dying, he intends to fight back. Sheer resolution, no fear, no hesitation. Thorkel knows the look. These are the eyes of a true warrior, and a true warrior needs no weapons. Like Thor's, like the weak man Englishmen worship, Canuto's words are enough to sway people away from violence and move them towards a common cause. The young prince has won an army and, by default, the city of Londinum. At this moment, Askeladd swears loyalty to the prince by confessing he killed Ragnar while giving the prince a sword. But rather than punishment, he appoints him as his bodyguard. Thorkel and his army decide to follow as well, and the two leaders brand their past battle as water under the bridge. That's all men like them can do, Askeladd says. Two loyal leaders, one loyal army, and Thorfinn, who's only loyal to his grudge. Blind to this fact, Canuto trusts Thorfinn and Askeladd the same, and he shares his plans with them. He intends to take the throne and create a paradise on Earth, and he will become a monster if he needs to. He will be loyal to his vision. Canuto believes that human suffering is due to our separation from God. But if God is not here anymore, only human hands can craft human salvation. He thought about this when he was about to face Bjorn. What we lost in exchange for wisdom, the most important thing. It's something that we'll never get back as long as we live. We'll never attain it. Yet, even then, you still tell us to seek it, Father in heaven. There are only two things that the crown orders the king to do. It orders him to use its power and to increase its power. Resistance is futile. The crown does not want you. The king was not happy to see the weakest of his children alive in Gainsborough's throne room, nor was he happy to understand his pacific nature. So he warned him about the true nature of the crown, a power that allows you to command 10,000 soldiers and 1,000 ships. A power that forces its wearer to use it. And the person wielding a force that can enslave, sack and raise is tired, old and weary. Askeladd is already pondering how he can take advantage of it. This meeting was an ambush, just like the one Canuto had already bypassed in the city, but the king let them go with a promise of a reward in the next banquet. And all thanks to Askeladd, who was quick to point out Canuto's success in winning Thorkel's army and Londinum. They go, but not before the king accuses Askeladd of being the child of a slave. The mercenary's blood boils, but he'll have to deal with it another time. The last scenario is York, and we require the last bit of context. It's 10,014 AD, and the English city of York is under Danish control. It's currently used as a slave trading port. Defeated civilians and soldiers become merchandise. Sitting at the port, the old traveler Leif is wondering if 11 years has been enough time to surrender and go back home. But fate finally leads him to his goal, as he sees Thorfinn arriving to the city alongside an army and the mercenary that killed his father. Then he sees Thorfinn's full transformation into a cold-hearted soldier, as he takes down men trying to ambush Canuto, and he's too far gone. After 11 years of following Askeladd, he has neither achieved his coveted reward, nor managed to let go of his pain and anger. Even though Leif knew with his heart who Thorfinn was, he was only convinced after others recognized him. Thor's son has made a name for himself, as a notorious vassal of the prince, and as the young warrior that defeated Thorkel. But is this really the friend Leif is looking for? Thorfinn is a horrendous shadow of the joyful kid that was once Leif's friend. And the traveler's insistence on going back home falls on deaf ears. Heartbroken, Leif sees Thorfinn walk away, slipping even further into his misery. He knows his friend has seen hell. Thorfinn, let's go home. And so, around Thorfinn, the political scheming continues, but he only cares about one thing. A day before the new meeting with the king, Thorfinn challenges Askeladd once again. A couple of nights ago, Bjorn said that Thorfinn was the only one to hold grudges. Now he takes Thorfinn's turn for one last wish, dying in battle and hearing what he was eager to hear, that he was indeed Askeladd's one friend. And so now, Thorfinn is the last of the mercenaries' men. One day before the imperial banquet, Askeladd beats Thorfinn senseless with his bare hands, as if he were truly angry this time. Canuto and Thorkel bear witness. However, they don't understand the reason for the duels. And unlike other duels, Askeladd declares he is sick of Thorfinn and points the sword at his beaten body. Canuto stops it and wakes Thorfinn up. When he opens his eyes, his enemy tells him why he can't win. He loses his temper against him, and his movements become sloppy. He knows this because he hates Viking warriors, and they all act the same. Their intentions are too easy to see. That is not the way to take revenge against someone he hates. That requires an approach similar to how he took revenge many years ago. Her mother was one of the many women his father Olaf had. She was a slave, and she went crazy because of Olaf's continued beatings. One day, the father killed her like a dog in the streets, and the 11-year-old Askeladd was not able to take revenge with a sword. However, he knew how to use the sword automatically, so he knew that her mother's stories about Artorius were true, and that he had the blood of the hero, but he would not be taking the hero's honorable path. So he impressed Olaf enough to become part of his family. He earned his undivided trust. One night, he killed Olaf and his lady while they were sleeping, but still kept his father's fortune because he made it look like someone else did it. The hero Artorius never came to help his descendants, the mercenary said. If the hero is truly resting in paradise, why would he come back to such a world? This world belongs to humans. And this is a world without honor. Thorfinn did not understand the lesson, and he swore to end his life. Perhaps it's disappointment, perhaps it's anger, perhaps the mercenary is tired of the charade. He accused Thorfinn of being a dog chasing his foot, a foolish but useful child that followed every command just to get his cookies. Thorfinn screams, cries, and falls to his knees. Artorius' descendant walks away with Bjorn's body and answers Canuto's one question: why doesn't Askeladd take the crown? He says he's not worthy, not like Canuto is. He knew so the first time he saw his face. After all, Askeladd is just a Viking, he says. Beaten, alone and humiliated, Thorfinn sees his pathetic reflection on his father's sword, a cruel reminder of everything he's done to chase his food. Many years ago, a 6-year-old boy got injured during a scouting mission. An old lady and her daughter found him and took the boy home. They tended his wounds, fed his belly, and combed his hair. They gave him the kind of affection the boy had already lost. These ladies were an English family, and they knew the boy was Danish, enemy of the English, and still decided to help, as it is what Jesus Christ would do. The old lady even protected Thorfinn when a soldier came looking for the young Danish scout that just killed 2 soldiers. The old lady believed something must have happened to take the boy into such a dark path, and she was hoping to help him. But the boy knew this was a trap. Under the cover of the night, he lit the lady's house on fire and filled his heart with regret. The boy pleaded the people to flee, as the mercenaries were going to come, and no one listened. Before the boy's companions arrived, he took one life and took one last look at the lady. Thorfinn's eyes were met with disgust, disappointment, and heartbreak. The lady that reminded the boy of his mother and sister disappeared forever in the trail of mercenary destruction. The boy's dreadful face of regret changed into a dead expression. Regret is surfacing again. 11 years after the boy became a mercenary, he's crying alone in the snow. It's the day of the imperial banquet. While Canuto, Thorkel and Askeladd are in the palace, Thorfinn is injured, broken and lost in the streets. He gets in a fight and guards throw him in jail. Leif finds him, as he has not given up, and says he will never give up, as taking care of him is what he promised to Thors. Far, far from the west, across the sea, there lies a new world where the trees are laden with fruit and grassy plains cover the land. Leif invites Thorfinn to go there together, as even Thors would have gone to Vinland. Meanwhile, in the banquet, the king and Askeladd fight a silent battle of strategies. The king can't figure out what he wants, or how to defeat him, so he dances around words and rewards for Canuto to check how he reacts. Soon enough, Floki and the king realize Askeladd's allegiance belongs to Wales, so the king promises to conquer Askeladd's homeland, the country his mother loved. Swearing, the king calls him forward, and Askeladd tries to negotiate peace for Wales, as the war with England, he says, has already been costly. The king pulls Askeladd up close to his ear, he says, "Wales or Canuto, choose." Wales is worthless, the king says, and the only thing it produces are slaves. The crown thinks it has won. Leif also thinks he has won. He paid for Thorfinn's freedom and put him on a ship, but the young warrior soon changed his mind and rushed back to the banquet. It might be too late. Cornered, Askeladd pushes the king's hand off. The mask is off. "That is not the face of a king," he says. The old man thought the crown was enough to protect him, and the crown was useless. Askeladd draws his sword and makes his intentions clear. He has gone mad, or so Canuto made it seem. Before anyone could react, Askeladd screams his real name, Lucius Artorius, Castus, the legitimate king of Britannia. A single swing of the sword is all it takes to cut the head of the savage king. It's Canuto's cue. He orders the guards to capture the king's murderer. Thorfinn is reaching the banquet, but he knows something is off. He climbs to the roof and sees Askeladd's rampage through the window. He doesn't understand what's going on, but he has only one thing in mind. Lucius continues the show and fights every guard in the palace. No one can take him down, and Thorfinn is too late. He intends to defend Lucius so he doesn't die, but this is his intention, Canuto knows. The prince knows Lucius chose to save both him and Wales, and now he's fating madness to take full blame for what happened. Thorfinn cares not for political scheming, however Askeladd's fearful warning keeps him at bay, almost as if Askeladd wanted to save Thorfinn's life. The young warrior is in shock. He can't move, he can't react, and he's there to see how Askeladd falls to Canuto's sword. A moment of silence. All but Thorfinn, screaming in pain and anger. He sits next to Askeladd, his body is going cold and washing away 11 years of pain, murder and anger into the utter empty. He was not supposed to die like this. He had to die in a duel in the name of Thors. Askeladd says that he should take his life. We're enemies after all, right? He says. Were they? Because Askeladd's last words, Lucius' last thoughts, were not for his mother, nor his homeland. In the future, how do you plan to live your life after I die, Thorfinn? Move forward. Go far ahead. Go beyond the world Thors went. You're Thor's son, after all. That's your real fight. Become a true warrior, child of Thors. Lucius closes his eyes forever. A wild animal can hear any explanation. Thorfinn cuts Canuto's face with a knife, and Thorkel pins him down. To save his life, Canuto puts on the crown, claims himself as the king, and says he will handle it. He also respected Lucius' wish, as he promises that the crown will not pursue the domination of the Wales. Lucius was able to achieve his goal upon death. Guards seize Thorfinn, his duels forever lost, his father's sword ever forgotten. The young warrior disappears into unknown punishment. A ship of slaves sails through the waves and the sea. Stay with me as we explore the next step in Thorfinn's journey on Season 2, and the end of the soul-consuming spiral of violence he chose. Stay with me to understand the teachings of Vinland Saga. How can we have no enemies in a world full of violence, deceit and treachery? How can we turn the other cheek? How do we move on from self-defining pain? Thank you for coming this far. And I hope there's something in this story that you can apply in your real life. A good fantasy tells a story that feels believable within its setting, while still delivering a message that makes sense in our realities. Subscribe, like, and tip me if you like this video. Keep the comment section
civilized.